Hi, I'm Roger Mashad. At Franklin Templeton Investments, we believe that citizens need to be informed about the resources that can help make higher education more affordable. That's why we're proud to support programming produced by the Caucus Educational Corporation and their partners in public television.
State of Affairs with Steve Adubato is brought to you from the Agnes Varus NJTV studio at 2 Gateway. Funding has been provided by New Jersey Resources, Valley National Bank, Summit Medical Group, NJ Best, New Jersey's 529 College Savings Plan. Turn a dream into a degree. The New Jersey Office of the Insurance Fraud Prosecutor. Insurance fraud costs New Jersey families $1,300 a year. New Jersey Council of County Colleges. And by International Union of Operating Engineers, Local 825. Promotional support provided by Observer New Jersey Politics. And by the New Jersey Business and Industry Association.
Welcome to State of Affairs. I'm Steve Adubato. We, in fact, are coming to you from the Agnes Varus NJTV studio in Newark, New Jersey. I'm pleased to welcome for the first time with us Tim Sullivan, Chief Executive Officer of the New Jersey Economic Development Authority, otherwise known as the New Jersey EDA. Good to see you, Tim.
Thanks so much for having me. Great to be here.
How would you describe the EDA?
EDA is a really important part of the state's efforts to diversify and grow the economy, and we have a broad set of tools that under Governor Murphy's leadership we're looking forward to deploying to strengthen and grow and diversify the economy, make it stronger and fairer New Jersey.
Let's break this down a little bit. New governor comes in, Governor Murphy, he or she.
Right.
Does he or she appoint the head of the EDA, and then there's a vote by the board?
Makes a recommendation to the board, and then the board takes that recommendation up, which I was fortunate to get that recommendation and vote back in February.
Describe your background.
Grew up in Bergen County, so born and raised in New Jersey.
Bergen Catholic.
Bergen Catholic, Deus Vult. There we go. Go Crusaders. And
Essex Catholic, Eagles. My high school doesn't even exist anymore, but that's another story.
That's fine.
Okay, go ahead. Go ahead. Bergen County.
Bergen County. Went to school down in Washington and worked in New York City for a bunch of years. Worked for Mayor Bloomberg when he was the mayor. Did economic development policy for Mayor Bloomberg and his deputy mayor, Bob Steele. Then spent the last 4.5 years or so up in Connecticut working for Governor Dan Malloy, and was really thrilled to get the call from Governor Murphy to come home and work for the home state.
Let's break this down a little bit. The EDA provides, can we say, loans to get projects going that otherwise might not get going?
That's one of the things we do, sure. So it provides loans and tax credits.
By the way, excuse me, we're talking to Tim Sullivan at the EDA. The website is up right now. Check out more information. I'm sorry, Tim.
Of course. We do a bunch of, the EDA has a whole bunch of tools. One of them is we can provide loans to small businesses that might otherwise have difficulty accessing the traditional banking markets. We can provide tax credits to help incentivize or encourage companies to either stay or, more importantly, come to New Jersey and grow here. We can also help provide gap financing,
What does that mean?
If a project is, as you described it, if a project doesn't quite make sense on its own, but there's important public policy goals, for example, affordable housing. We're working on a project just around the corner in Newark where there's two housing developments being brought out of the ground that have a portion of affordable housing in them, and we're helping to provide some financing to bridge that gap to help make the economics make sense for the development team.
Tim, excuse me, as we're talking about businesses in the state, so many legislators come here and others from both sides of the aisle who talk about the challenges that businesses face. They want to stay in New Jersey. They love the state. But the cost of doing business in the state is very challenging. How hard is it, in fact, to keep businesses that employ thousands and thousands of people in this state? Is it hard?
Well, I'd say New Jersey has definitely a set of challenges and a set of opportunities that are not dissimilar from a lot of other northeastern states, and I've had the privilege of working in other places. And the challenges.
So you have context.
I do have some context, yeah, from Connecticut and New York City, which is sort of its own animal, but certainly some context. Real challenges and real opportunities. I think when you think about the cost of doing business, there's both financial costs and non-financial costs. I think one of the biggest things that we hear constantly from businesses that are either thinking about coming to New Jersey or making decisions about whether they should stay. Infrastructure. transportation, traffic, those kinds of considerations.
Quality of life issues.
Quality of life that comes right along with it. So, maintaining our strong position with regard to quality of life and education and the vitality of our cities and towns is really important. So is making investments in higher education, investments in transportation, and particularly in mass transit. If folks can't get to and from work, they'll figure out a way where they can be somewhere where they can get to and from work. And so that's a big challenge. One of the reasons that the governor's been so out front and so vocal in the need to invest in New Jersey transit. They need to invest in things like the Gateway Project to
Yeah, we're talking about
shore
the
up.
United States Senator. Sorry for interrupting. United States Senator Cory Booker was with us, sitting where Tim is right now. He was there yesterday. The Gateway Tunnel project is huge. We talked about that from a federal perspective. Why is it an economic development issue from your perspective?
Well, for one thing, the ability to get folks in and out of into and out of Penn Station from New Jersey is critically important. Hundreds of thousands of people from New Jersey work in the city every day, and if they can't get there, they may make different decisions about where to live. Companies may begin to make different decisions about where to locate. And so, New Jersey has always benefited from having both a dense and highly educated population, but also a great location with great connectivity. Connectivity is the name of the game in the 21st century economy. That's both an infrastructure comment, but also with regard to things like, internet and wireless capability and broadband and all those things. And so, Gateway is critical, and the ability, the last time that the new rail tunnels drilled under the Hudson was, I think, 1910 or 1911, something like that. The economy is tripled in size.
Aging infrastructure.
Aging infrastructure. It's a problem not just the Gateway. It's a problem all along the rail system. It's a problem for bridges and roads all throughout the state. That's a really important factor that I think a lot of people overlook when they're thinking about the overall competitiveness factor for New Jersey's economy.
Sorry for interrupting, Tim. Steve Adubato here talking with Tim Sullivan, the head of the New Jersey Economic Development Authority. You see there, we'll put up their website and check out what they're doing there. So there have been conversations, questions, some say controversy. How much should the EDA do? How much should they help a business come to the state, stay in the state, keep them from leaving, in terms of tax incentives, et cetera? And what does that company owe the state of New Jersey? I mean, so I can break this down in simple terms. Does the company have to commit to hiring a certain number of people, and those people be from New Jersey? Like the ROI on this. Am I oversimplifying it?
No, you've got it basically exactly right. Yeah, it's a very, very complicated, it's a very, very important public policy set of questions, because the notion of sort of incentivizing or inducing folks to do things that they either would or wouldn't otherwise do is sort of an impossible question to answer precisely.
Sure.
And so, one of the things, certainly, companies, if they receive a tax credit, if they're getting a public investment in the form of a tax credit, we ask them to certainly commit to a certain number of jobs. They usually come to us and say what their plans are. They have to commit to doing those things. And the amount of credit they get, the program that exists now, which sunsets about a year from now, it sunsets in June of 2019. It ends unless the legislature extends it. It's both performance-based and it's based on the number of jobs you pledge to create. So you get a certain amount of tax credit for a certain number of jobs with some bonuses built in if you're in a city, if they're high-paying jobs, if they're in targeted industries like life sciences. And if you don't create those jobs, you don't get the tax credit.
There are penalties.
You never get it.
You don't get it. That's a penalty.
That's a penalty. That's right. And so and so companies have to perform. And so we'll see over the next. There was a large number of tax credit projects that were initiated in the last 4 or 5 years. Some of those are going to come to fruition and come to the finish line in the next couple of years, and we'll see if one of those companies are able to deliver on the commitments they made, if they'll get the credits they earned.
By the way, Tim, can people go on the website and find out what those projects are?
Absolutely. There's a detailed list on our website.
Make sure you go on the website. How about this one? We lose. I had this conversation with Larry Downs over at New Jersey Resources, happens to be the chair, if I'm not mistaken, of the EDA, a good friend of ours. And Larry was talking about the fact, and this is relevant for a lot of people, we are losing a lot of New Jersey folks who go to school here, college here, and then leave. Yep. And then they spend their life somewhere else. Taxes go to another, the economic impact. The brain drain, what do we do? Is that an EDA issue?
It's an everyone issue. And so as Governor Murphy likes to think about these things as sort of a whole of government response. So EDA certainly has a role to play in it. The higher education department, my cabinet colleague, Dr. Zakiya Smith-Ellis, has obviously a big role to play in this. And it's a huge long-term challenge for New Jersey to be an exporter of talent, and particularly college-educated talent. Talent is the raw material of the 21st century economy. Companies are making their decisions on where they want to be based on where they can find the people that they need. If we are exporting talent, that is a big problem long-term. How do we fix that? There's a lot of things you need to do. And certainly, tax and fiscal policy is part of it. But I think a big part of New Jersey's opportunity ahead of it is how do we make the smart investments in our cities that are increasingly the places that young people want to be. 25 years ago, people were making decisions that were more kind of suburban oriented and getting out of cities. And certainly, if you look at obviously New York and Philadelphia, but even in Jersey City and Newark and Camden and all across the country, there's a significant wave of investment happening in American cities, in the urban areas, and that's increasingly where companies want to be. Large companies, small companies want to be in dense, walkable, mixed-use places. New Jersey has to be.
Go ahead.
New Jersey has to be in a position to compete in that.
Sorry for cutting you off like that, Tim. Make sure you come back and we'll continue the conversation. Tim Sullivan has been with us. He is, in fact, the Chief Executive Officer of the New Jersey Economic Development Authority, otherwise known as the EDA. You've seen their website up throughout this entire segment. Check it out. Find out what's going on there. They're having a big impact. Tim, thank you so much.
Thanks so much for having me. Appreciate it.
Stay with us. This is State of Affairs. I'm Steve Adubato. We will be right back.
To see more State of Affairs with Steve Adubato programs, visit us online at stateofaffairsnj.org. If you would like to express an opinion, email us at info@caucusnj.org. Find us on Facebook at facebook.com/Steve Adubato, PhD. And follow us on Twitter at Steve Adubato.
We're joined by David Socolow, who is, in fact, Executive Director of the New Jersey Higher Education Student Assistance Authority, and the acronym is?
HESAA.
It is HESAA.
It's HESAA.
It's still HESAA.
It's still HESAA. You got it. Yeah.
And tell folks exactly what you guys do.
So we're the arm of state government that helps students and their families get resources and information about affording the price and cost of college, post-secondary education, both financial resources, information, and strategies for helping pay for college.
Okay, so let's get this out of the way. FAFSA, F-A-S-F-A, free application.
Yeah, FSA, so it's free
application for federal student aid.
Yeah.
What is it and why is it the key? For those of us who have had young people go to college, I'm like, this form, you got to do this.
Yeah.
Talk about it.
So the FAFSA is the key to all financial aid. And the most important thing is every school, every institution of public and private higher ed uses the FAFSA as the starting point. And so that information tells the federal government, first of all, but then also the state through the additional state questions that are right at the end of the FAFSA, all of your financial circumstances to help determine need-based aid, but also aid that might be given out by the school. And so that's called institutional aid.
Sure.
And so there's state aid, which HESAA administers. There's the federal aid, like the Pell Grant and the federal programs, SEOG, other federal programs.
You think there's enough acronyms?
Yeah, there's a lot of acronyms in student aid, but the key point is there's money that you don't have to pay back. That's called grants and scholarships. And then there's money that you do. That's called loans. And all of it starts with the FAFSA, which is FAFSA.gov. That's where you go to fill it out.
So I'm curious about this, David. The whole question of not just affordability, college affordability, but the debt.
Right.
Are we making a dent, if you will, or making any significant improvements in the debt that young people or others, you don't have to be that young, who graduate from a higher ed institution and says, my God, I've got all this debt. A, are we making a dent? B, what advice do you have?
So I think that there's a lot of efforts going on right now. We're doing some things right now on the student loans that HESAA administers to try to make it easier to repay
Your
those.
operation.
Our organization. But 90% of all the loans are federal loans. The good news about federal loans is that you can repay them as a percentage of your income. It's called income-driven repayment or income-based repayment. Lots more acronyms.
Okay, so if you're not making a ton of money, you still only pay a percentage of what you make.
Right. In general, we need more people to get post-secondary credentials that will help them get jobs and help build our workforce, build our economy. In general, it pays off. The amount of money that you might take out in debt, you'll make more than that over the course of your lifetime. And so it makes sense to take out a loan. But we need a backstop. That's what income-based repayment is, because something might happen. Someone might get sick, or they might not get the job that they were hoping to get, or it might not pay what they thought it was going to pay, and therefore they get to repay as a percentage of their income. When their income goes up, they pay more, but if their income is lower, they pay less. That's available on those federal student loans, and that's what everyone should take out first. We're
talking with David Socolow, who is Executive Director of the New Jersey Higher Education Student Assistance Authority. How about this one? For some of us, from parents out there, caregivers, who We're like, all right, I've been told I have to start planning for the potential of a child of ours to go to college when he or she is like a baby. Is that?
Yeah. It's a good idea. Even saving a small amount is a worthwhile thing. We at HESAA run the New Jersey BEST program, which is a
NJ Best.
NJ Best, college savings. And it has a lot of benefits in terms of those savings. The first $25,000 don't count for financial aid calculation if you go to school in New Jersey. And you can save little amounts over time. And if you do that, you'll have less that you have to borrow. And so it is a good strategy to save
But you
money.
can't just all of a sudden go, oh my God, I didn't realize this would be so expensive. Wherever you go, you have to plan early on.
You have to plan, and you also have to try to make sure that the amount that you're paying is in some way commensurate to the job that you're going to get afterwards. It doesn't make sense to take on a program that you're not going to finish.
Right.
The biggest problems with student loans is people who have debt but no degree. That's the biggest issue.
Hold on. You go all the way to a certain point, David, and you don't graduate. You're not in the best position in the marketplace, but you still have that debt.
Exactly, and you've got to repay that. And so to some extent, that income-based repayment that I discussed enables you to repay it slower with smaller amounts. But let's face it, that debt is still there. The better thing to do, obviously, is to maximize what you're getting in terms of grants, maximize what you're getting in terms of scholarships, what you can do with self-help in terms of work study, get jobs during term. But also, having, the loans that you take out be, reasonable amounts. And so, we are definitely looking for people to fill out that FAFSA because you don't know what all the aid you could be getting. We have efforts in New Jersey to be the state that has the highest percentage of students filling out the FAFSA. Right now, we're number 6. We want to climb up that ladder because the more people fill it out, they're amazed at the grants and the scholarships that are offered.
This has been David Socolow, who is the executive director of an organization. It may have a long name, an interesting acronym, but it is so important. We've had lots of conversations about college affordability, college debt, the loans and issues that will be faced later on. So one more time, can we put the website up, Jackie, one more time for the New Jersey Higher Education Student Assistance Authority. David, I want to thank you for joining us. We appreciate it. And make sure you come back. We'll continue to talk about it. Because this issue of higher ed and affordability and how to manage that debt is critically important. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Stay right there.
Appreciate it.
State of Affairs will be right back, right after this.
All right.
To see more State of Affairs with Steve Adubato programs, visit us online at stateofaffairsnj.org. If you would like to express an opinion, email us at info@caucusnj.org. Find us on Facebook at facebook.com/Steve Adubato, PhD. And follow us on Twitter at Steve Adubato.
We're joined by Dr. Andrea Bartoli, Dean of the School of Diplomacy and International Relations at Seton Hall University. Good to see you, Doctor.
To see you.
So many things going on internationally. Yes, we are a New Jersey-based show, but New Jersey needs to be connected to the rest of the world. Could you help us understand this? The U.S. relations right now, largely through President Trump, and its connection to our quote-unquote European allies and, let's say, Canada as well. How are we doing toward the end of June 2018? How are we doing?
So the U.S. is doing what President Trump announced during his campaign. And so in that sense, it's interesting because President Trump is just keeping his words. So the Europeans are clearly startled by this.
Why? He said it and he's doing it.
Exactly. So why are you surprised? Well, because this is really a departure. And it's a departure because for administration, both Republican and Democrats, the Europeans and the Canadians were clearly the fundamental bedrock of the international system. President Trump is unusual. President Trump is an independent president, fundamentally. He's breaking away from a lot of cliché, a lot of things that were done in the past, and he's exploring new territories. So he doesn't consider an alliance as the one that the US had with Europe and Canada as a bedrock. He's renegotiating everything.
Including trade.
Especially trade because for him, trade speaks volume about power. So what the Europeans are having difficulties is that President Trump is clearly pushing a speed of change, an intensity of the change that for the Europeans is just a little bit off-putting.
So, when the president says, you know what, Vladimir Putin, he should be part of our group.
Yes.
He belongs with us. You think what?
Well, I think that it's important to speak with everybody. I do fear, however, when we are speaking only or primarily to authoritarian figures around the world. I don't have any problem.
Be it the leader of North Korea, be it the leader of
China, the leaders
right.
of Russia, and
They're not quote unquote democratic societies.
They are definitely not, and Europe is. So it's an interesting signal that you are sending around of what really counts. And it's fundamentally a lesson on power. The ones that do have power, we are talking to. The ones that are procedural, the ones that are participatory, the ones that are truly democratic, well, we are not that interested because in many ways they are weak.
But Dr. Bartoli, by the way, this is Dr. Andrea Bartoli, Dean of the School of International Relations and Diplomacy at Seton Hall University, the other way around, but we'll see it up there. Is there a risk, or what is the risk by saying, you know what, yes, we've been together with these European countries, France, Germany, England, and also Canada, et cetera, et cetera. But you know what? I don't think we need them so much. Is there potentially a time, Doctor, loaded question, I know, that we really want to go to them and they're like, wait a minute, you didn't treat us right.
But there is an enormous risk even further. The question is, what is the world you want to live in? So you want to live in a world in which everybody's robbing everybody, or you want to live in a world in which everybody's respecting everybody? Well, power is interesting because, of course, I have a certain power if I have weapons, if I have the capacity to harm you, to steal from you. But what about actually having a village in which the roads work, a school works, the light works, and so on and so forth? So it's really an issue of what is the world that we are anticipating? Are we living in a world that is really just a power game, or are we living in a world that is about respecting, that is about encountering?
You're asking a rhetorical question.
I'm asking it because I think that the world that we are creating is the world that we have inside. And this is why it's so important for us to cultivate actually our own values, our own commitments.
Our being citizens of the nation or citizens of the world?
Both. Because we are in a way now, very clearly, building the world as we go. You were speaking about New Jersey before.
Yes.
But New Jersey is the world. There is no doubt that you have, the Prime Minister of Portugal coming to see the soccer game.
And down in the Ironbound section of Newark, because there's so many Portuguese who live in the Ironbound. It is the world.
And then you have the largest Indian city outside India just right here.
That's
and you
right. And my family came from Naples.
And
please. You came from a different section of Italy, did you
I'm
not?
definitely Roman.
How did I know that? How did I know we're different pailles?
But the
that's
point is that
story.
New Jersey is really the world. So it's connected.
We can't. So excuse me for interrupting, Doctor. Is it dangerous for us to be so provincial and say, this is New Jersey, we just care about ourselves? Or America?
What I'm saying is that it's just impossible because everybody's already here. You have a lot of people from all over that are already here. You have Hungarians here, you have Somali here, you have Nigerians here, you have Chinese here. So I think it's important actually to take New Jersey very seriously and to see the politics and the policies that we are experimenting here may have effect actually in a lot of places. We are in a moment of humanity in which we can learn from one another in a way that we couldn't in the past. But from the way you get your garbage to the way you do your education, from the way you do transportation to the way you welcome people, you are actually setting the tone, not just for New Jersey, but for the world you want to have.
By the way, Steve Adubato here. We're talking with Dr. Bartoli from Seton Hall University about a whole range of international issues. I have to do this. As we speak right now, the immigration issue is complex, confusing. As we speak, literally, at the end of June 2018, the whole question of babies, children being separated from their parents. Is that a diplomacy issue? Is it a negotiation? What is it?
Very much. So it's, first of all, is choice, is human choice. Laws are human choice, borders are human choices, interpretation and executions are human choices.
Excuse me for interrupting, Doctor. As we speak right now, the president is saying, it's the law, don't ask me, I'm just following the law.
Well, he's also saying we can review the law, and so it's also important to see what is the opening that he's offering. So it's impossible to think the crisis unless we try to find a way out. Could we do an overhauling and changing the law about immigration? Of course, I believe that this is what the country should do. And definitely it's not easy politically, but it's something that a state like New Jersey should consider.
Let me ask you this. I said when we're taping toward the end of June, this show will be seen after that. If you were predicting it, would you say that we are, in fact, going to take on a meaningful discussion and real changes in immigration policy for the better? We have to.
We have to.
For if we do not?
America economically, politically needs a lot of migrants. It's absolutely necessary for America to grow, to be great, to actually have a very significant, meaningful conversation on immigration.
And the pathway to legal immigration.
That's the issue that you need to have when you have president, Congress, and states together. And this is why America really needs to come together.
Dr. Andrea Bartoli, Dean of the School of Diplomacy and International Relations at Seton Hall University, originally from beautiful Roma. Thank you, Dean. Appreciate it. Check out next time on State of Affairs. We're in Newark, not Rome.
State of Affairs with Steve Adubato is a production of the Caucus Educational Corporation, celebrating over 25 years of broadcast excellence. State of Affairs with Steve Adubato is brought to you from the Agnes Veris NJTV studio at 2 Gateway. Funding has been provided by New Jersey Resources, Valley National Bank, Summit Medical Group, NJ Best, the New Jersey Office of the Insurance Fraud Prosecutor, New Jersey Council of County Colleges, and by International Union of Operating Engineers, Local 825.
Think this is absurd? Insurance fraud costs every New Jersey family over $1,300 every year. Report fraud at njinsurancefraud.org.